In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true.
So am I trying to escape, or am I trying to sever other people's threads from Itami?
It was something that she did, it was something that I decided to do, and I killed her in the back of my mind.
Not to mention, the brother was the only one who was concerned about this whole entire dynamic because he tried to go to the police and give them all the evidence that he had.
This is the story of how D4VD, a bedroom pop artist who rose to fame through TikTok, and his boyfriend attempted to navigate public scrutiny that ultimately backfired in ways they never anticipated. A plan to control their narrative turned into one of the most controversial moments in the young artist's career. And what unfolded reveals something darker about fame in the social media age. The rise of D4VD. Before we get to what went wrong, you need to understand who D4VD is and how he became one of the most talked about names in the bedroom pop scene. 4DVD is a bedroom pop artist who gained massive attention through TikTok. And his music resonated with a generation that grew up on social media in ways that felt completely organic. His sound captured something authentic about the experience of making music in your bedroom and sharing it with the world.
The story of the manga went like I was a detective and there was an evil version of myself that would kind of come out at random moments, kind of like Fight Club with Tyler Durden. And he would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as the detective.
So am I trying to escape, or am I trying to sever other people's threads from Itami? Bro, I don't care about nobody else's threads, bro. I'm trying to get out, bro. Without me getting out of purgatory, without me escaping the red thread limbo, bro, I can't get back to what my purpose is, bro.
Which turned the platform into his launchpad and changed everything about his life almost overnight. What started as simple posts turned into viral moments that catapulted him into the spotlight. And his approach to music felt personal and intimate in exactly the way bedroom pop is supposed to be. The genre itself thrives on that rawness, that sense that you're hearing something unfiltered and real from someone who could be your friend or your neighbor. 4DVD embodied that aesthetic perfectly, recording tracks in his bedroom and sharing them with followers who felt like they were discovering something special before the rest of the world caught on. But that intimacy came with something he wasn't fully prepared for, which was the public's insatiable curiosity about his personal life. When you build your brand on authenticity and vulnerability, when your music comes from deeply personal places and your connection with fans feels genuine and unmediated, those same fans start to believe they deserve access to every part of you. They want to know who you're dating, where you're living, what you're thinking about when you're not making music, and they feel entitled to that information because you invited them into your world through your art. When private life becomes public, D4VD's following grew rapidly, and so did the interest in who he was dating and what his relationship status looked like. Fans began speculating about his relationship status with an intensity that went beyond casual curiosity, analyzing his lyrics for hidden meanings, searching through his social media for clues in the background of photos, and building entire theories about his love life based on the smallest details. This is standard territory for any artist with a significant following, but it put D4VD in a difficult position because he was in a relationship with his boyfriend and they hadn't made any official public statements about it. The speculation created a strange kind of pressure where every post became a potential minefield, and every public appearance sparked new rounds of detective work from fans who were convinced they could piece together the truth. Some of this attention came from a good place, from fans who wanted to support him and celebrate his identity, but some of it felt invasive and uncomfortable in ways that made normal life increasingly difficult. The couple found themselves at a crossroads where they could either continue to keep their relationship private and deal with endless speculation that would only intensify as D4VD's career grew, or address it head-on and hopefully put the matter to rest. They chose the latter, and that's where the plan began to take shape. The plan. D4VD and his boyfriend decided they wanted to control how their relationship became public knowledge, which meant that rather than letting rumors swirl or having their privacy invaded by paparazzi or online sleuths who would eventually figure it out anyway, they would make the announcement themselves on their own terms. The idea seemed reasonable on the surface since many celebrities have successfully revealed relationships through carefully planned social media posts or interviews that allowed them to frame the narrative in their own words. By taking control of the narrative, they could present their relationship in a way that felt authentic to them, while satisfying the public's curiosity and hopefully moving past this chapter, so D4VD could focus on his music again.
Are you guilty? I might be, right? Like, it's kind of almost like, bruv.
They likely hoped that by being open about their relationship, they could normalize it and move forward with their lives and careers without the constant speculation hanging over every post and public appearance like a dark cloud. The planning process probably involved discussions about timing, about which platform to use for the announcement, about what to say and how much detail to share. They wanted to strike the right balance between being honest and maintaining some boundaries, between giving fans what they wanted and keeping something for themselves. On paper, the plan made sense and seemed like the mature, thoughtful way to handle a situation that was only going to get more complicated the longer they waited. But here's the thing about social media. It's unpredictable in ways that no amount of planning can fully account for. What seems like a good idea in private conversations doesn't always translate well when millions of people are watching, and you can't control how those millions of people will interpret your words, share your message, or use your personal life as fodder for their own agendas. What went wrong? When D4D and his boyfriend made their relationship public, the response wasn't what they expected, and the careful planning they'd done suddenly felt naive. Instead of the supportive reaction they hoped for, or even the neutral acknowledgement that would have let them move on with their lives, the announcement became controversial in ways they hadn't anticipated, and the plan to control the narrative didn't work the way they thought it would. The exact nature of the controversy isn't entirely clear from outside their immediate circle. But what is clear is that once information is public on the internet, you lose control of how it's interpreted, shared, discussed, twisted, and weaponized. What was meant to be an empowering moment of transparency turned into something that generated more attention and scrutiny than staying silent might have. And the couple found themselves dealing with a level of commentary and criticism they hadn't fully anticipated, even though they knew the announcement would generate some reaction. When you're an artist whose brand is built on authenticity and intimacy, every personal revelation becomes content for analysis and debate in ways that feel dehumanizing. Fans feel a sense of ownership over artists they've supported, especially artists who've built their careers on platforms that emphasize accessibility and connection. And that sense of ownership can lead to reactions that feel invasive and judgmental. People who had never met D4VD or his boyfriend suddenly had strong opinions about their relationship, about whether the announcement was appropriate, about what it meant for D4VD's image and career. The controversy spread beyond his core fan base too, reaching people who had never heard his music but had opinions about young artists and social media and identity. Every think piece and comment thread added another layer of noise that drowned out whatever message D4VD and his boyfriend had tried to send with their original announcement. The aftermath. The fallout from their announcement became one of the most talked about moments in D4VD's career. And that's saying something for an artist who built his reputation on viral moments and internet fame. But this time, the virality wasn't about his music or his talent or anything he'd created. It was about his personal life and his relationship, which created a complicated situation for D4VD since his music had always been personal and drawn from his real experiences and emotions. There's a difference between sharing feelings through art and having your actual relationship dissected by strangers online, though, and the line between artist and person became blurred in ways that made it difficult to separate the two. When you pour your heart into a song, you maintain some distance and control over how much you reveal. When you make a direct statement about your relationship, that distance disappears and suddenly you're completely exposed with no artistic buffer to protect you. His boyfriend, who wasn't a public figure in the same way and hadn't signed up for any of this attention when he started dating D4D, likely experienced this scrutiny even more intensely. Dating someone famous comes with its own challenges that most people don't fully understand until they're living through it. But becoming part of a controversial public narrative can be overwhelming for anyone, especially when you didn't ask for that level of attention and never wanted to be a public figure yourself. The experience likely changed how both of them thought about privacy, about what they owed their fans, and about the cost of building a career on platforms that reward constant sharing and transparency. What seemed like a simple decision to be honest about their relationship turned into a crash course in the darker sides of internet fame. The broader context, what happened to D4VD and his boyfriend, isn't unique to them since it's part of a larger pattern we see with artists who build their careers through social media and face impossible expectations. Platforms like TikTok create a sense of intimacy between artists and fans that didn't exist in previous generations. And the algorithm rewards authenticity and personal connection in ways that encourage artists to share more and more of their lives. Artists who succeed on these platforms often do so because they've mastered the art of making fans feel like friends. Like they're getting exclusive access to someone's real life rather than a carefully curated public persona. That means artists often share more of their lives than musicians in previous generations ever did, posting about their daily routines, their struggles, their relationships, and their internal thoughts in ways that would have seemed bizarre or unprofessional decades ago. But that intimacy is a double-edged sword because fans feel like they know these artists personally. And that creates expectations about what artists should share and how they should live their lives that go far beyond what's reasonable or healthy. When artists are open about their sexuality, their relationships, or other personal details, it can be empowering and create representation that matters to young people who are looking for themselves in the media they consume. Seeing someone like D4VD being open about his identity can make a real difference for young people who are struggling with their own identities and looking for role models who reflect their experiences. At the same time, though, that openness invites commentary and judgment from people who feel entitled to have opinions about every aspect of an artist's life. For LGBTQ+ artists specifically,
David is viewed as a suspect in this case. It may seem obvious, but remember, they have not publicly said anything like that. They have not even said publicly that he is a person of interest. We've spoken to several well-placed sources in law enforcement, and they say that in the investigation, they are viewing him as a suspect.
Are you
coming out
guilty?
or publicly
Some might
acknowledging
be, right?
same-sex
Like
relationships can
it's
still
kind of
generate
almost like,
backlash,
bruv.
even in spaces that claim to be progressive and supportive. And that backlash can come from unexpected places. You might face criticism from conservative audiences who object to your identity, but you might also face criticism from within LGBTQ+ communities about how you came out, what you said, whether you're being authentic enough or too provocative or not political enough. 4D's experience highlights the complicated reality of being a young, queer artist in the age of social media, where every decision is scrutinized. You're expected to be authentic, but not too authentic. You're supposed to share your life, but not in ways that make people uncomfortable. And you're meant to handle public scrutiny with grace while you're still figuring out who you are and how to navigate fame. The pressure is immense, and the margin for error is razor thin. Lessons learned. Looking back at what happened, there are several takeaways from D4VD and his boyfriend's experience that matter not just for them, but for anyone trying to navigate public life in the internet age. First, you can never fully control how the public will react to personal revelations, since no matter how carefully you plan an announcement or try to frame a narrative, once it's out there, it takes on a life of its own that you can't manage or contain. People will interpret it through their own biases, experiences, and expectations, which is just how the internet works and how human nature works when millions of people are all responding to the same piece of information. Second, the pressure to share personal information because of public interest doesn't mean you have to share anything at all, and maybe D4VD and his boyfriend would have been better off maintaining their privacy regardless of the speculation. 4D and his boyfriend chose to make their relationship public to end speculation, but staying private is also a valid choice since not every question from fans deserves an answer, and not every curiosity needs to be satisfied. Maintaining boundaries between public and private life is healthy, even if it's difficult. And that's something more artists are starting to realize as they watch situations like this unfold. Third, having a plan doesn't mean things won't go wrong since the couple clearly thought through their decision and tried to approach it thoughtfully. But they couldn't predict every possible outcome or control variables they didn't even know existed. This isn't a failure on their part. It's simply the reality of dealing with public opinion in the internet age where one person's supportive comment is another person's call to arms and where controversy can erupt from the most unexpected places. Moving forward, Despite the controversy, D4VD's career hasn't ended, and he continues to make music while his fan base remains engaged with his work, which speaks to his resilience and his talent. The incident became a learning experience both for him and for his fans about the boundaries of artist-fan relationships and about what artists actually owe their audiences beyond the art they create. For his boyfriend, the experience was likely a crash course in what it means to be connected to someone in the public eye and how quickly your private life can become public property when you're dating someone famous. Whether they're still together or have moved on separately, both of them now have a better understanding of what privacy looks like and what it costs when you're associated with fame. And that understanding will shape how they approach relationships and public life going forward. The lessons they learned came at a high cost, but they're lessons that will serve them well as they continue to navigate careers and lives that play out partially in public view. The bedroom pop scene continues to thrive, with TikTok launching new artists regularly who face many of the same challenges D4VD faced, and many of them will face similar questions about how much to share and where to draw the line between their art and their personal lives. 4D's experience serves as a cautionary tale, but also as a reminder that mistakes and controversy don't have to define an entire career, and that it's possible to move past difficult moments if you're willing to learn from them and adjust your approach. Conclusion: this is what happened when D4VD and his boyfriend tried to control their narrative by making their relationship public. They had a plan, they executed it with good intentions, and it went horribly wrong. Not because they did anything malicious or foolish, but because the internet is unpredictable and public opinion is impossible to control, no matter how carefully you try. Their story is a reminder that being open and authentic as an artist doesn't mean you owe the public every detail of your personal life. And it's about finding the balance between sharing enough to create meaningful connections with fans while protecting the parts of yourself that need to stay private. For young artists building careers through social media, D4VD's experience offers valuable lessons about the cost of fame, the importance of boundaries, and the reality that not every plan will work out the way you hope, even when your intentions are good and your planning is thorough. The relationship between artists and their audiences will continue to evolve as social media platforms change and new generations of musicians emerge. But one thing remains constant: the human beings behind the music deserve empathy, understanding, and the space to make mistakes without having their entire career defined by a single controversial moment.
In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true.
So am I trying to escape, or am I trying to sever other people's threads from Itami?
It was something that she did, it was something that I decided to do. And I killed her in the back of my mind.
Not to mention, the brother was the only one who was concerned about this whole entire dynamic because he tried to go to the police and give them all the evidence that he had.
The rise of D4VD. Before we get to what went wrong, you need to understand who D4VD is and how he became one of the most talked about names in the bedroom pop scene. 4DVD is a bedroom pop artist who gained massive attention through TikTok, and his music resonated with a generation that grew up on social media in ways that felt completely organic. His sound captured something authentic about the experience of making music in your bedroom and sharing it with the world.
David is viewed as a suspect in this case. That may seem obvious, but remember, they have not publicly said anything like that. They have not even said publicly that he is a person of interest. We've spoken to several well-placed sources in law enforcement, and they say that in the investigation, they are viewing him as a suspect.
This is the story of how D4VD, a bedroom pop artist who rose to fame through TikTok, and his boyfriend attempted to navigate public scrutiny that ultimately backfired in ways they never anticipated. A plan to control their narrative turned into one of the most controversial moments in the young artist's career, and what unfolded reveals something darker about fame in the social media age.
Are you guilty? I might be, right? Like, it's kind of almost like, bruv.
David case and all of the stunning new developments that have popped up. Enjoy.
The DA, clearly she thinks David did this, but there were more than one or more than two people who had some knowledge of it. A circle around David knew various things. By land and by sea, welcome to Two Angry Men.
They had a plan, they executed it with good intentions, and it went horribly wrong. Not because they did anything malicious or foolish, but because the internet is unpredictable and public opinion is impossible to control, no matter how carefully you try. Their story is a reminder that being open and authentic as an artist doesn't mean you owe the public every detail of your personal life. And it's about finding the balance between sharing enough to create meaningful connections with fans while protecting the parts of yourself that need to stay private. For young artists building careers through social media, D4VD's experience offers valuable lessons about the cost of fame, the importance of boundaries, and the reality that not every plan will work out the way you hope, even when your intentions are good and your planning is thorough. The relationship between artists and their audiences will continue to evolve as social media platforms change and new generations of musicians emerge. But one thing remains constant. The human beings behind the music deserve empathy, understanding, and the space to make mistakes without having their entire career defined by a single controversial moment.